Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up? A gracious good morning to you. It is Thursday morning, or as I like to call it, Friday light. It is May 16th, and it is 2:57 in the a.m. And I'm going to piggyback a little bit on my opening video for this morning and talk about that quote about sin and talk a little bit about what I do for a living. It's going to be an amalgam, if you will, of a bunch of different information, and then hopefully I can put together a more concrete message that has, a linear thought, because I don't want you guys to kind of do like I do and just kind of ramble around in my head, like a cartoon character in an overstuffed closet. I need this. That's how I usually think, and that's my thought process. So a lot of times I have to write things down in order to get a clear, concise, linear thought. But I'm going to do this on the cuff. I'm going to do this on the fly. So getting back to this quote about sin. Sin will take you further than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay, and cost you more than you want to pay. And, I talked about how we call sin something else to make it palatable, and so we can continue in it. Right? Now, here's the thought. Many moon ago, as I was just starting out as a counselor, I worked in collaboration with a particular group that did the 52-week legal course for domestic violence for the offenders. And, I talked about, my history in growing up in a house where there was domestic violence as a kid, witnessing that, the things that the trauma and my personal triggers for, just hypervigilance. And one of the things that happens in domestic violence, and this is the kind of the nature of the offender. If you want to look up what I'm saying, you can pull up the domestic violence wheel. There's a diagram that tells you how the things happen. And one of the things that was highlighted is an offender sees themselves a certain way. Now, of course, they're lying to themselves, right? They see themselves as a certain way. And, as events happen, as lifes, yeah, I did say that. As life events happen, say this particular person, I'm going to say, is at work bragging, my house is always clean. My wife keeps a tidy house, and every night I come home to a home cooked meal, kind of like old boy in his graduation speech. Yeah, I went there. And I'm going to say, let me pause there for a minute. His graduation speech, that's his opinion. He's entitled to it. I don't understand the uproar. If you don't agree with it, change the channel. If you don't agree with it, speak your piece and go on about your business. But that's his opinion. Anyway, getting back to my message. So my man sees himself as a certain way. Or my girl. I don't want to exclude anybody. So that being said, hey, I'm going to invite you over. Come on over. And, or some things happened at work and, the day was less than stellar, and you get home and the house is not clean and the meal is not cooked. That takes me out of how I see myself. That takes me out of this illusion that I created for myself. Right? So, how do I get back? I'm triggered. How do I get back? I get into this position of dominance. I get into this position of control. I get into this position where I'm going to correct the problem by beating it into submission. What's my point? Does that sound like the enemy? Does that sound like sin? It beats you into submission until the point is proven. It locks you into this role constantly berates and downgrades you until you start to believe that this is what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to be. That's why I say step out of it. Remember who God is and step out of it. See, the problem is many of us have normalized it, and many of us have gotten comfortable with it, and many of us tell ourselves this lie. You know, it's easy to lie with a little bit of scripture. The enemy does it on a regular basis. Many of us tell ourselves this lie. Trouble don't last always. It does if you're not willing to change. It does if you refuse to hear your call out of, out of Egypt. And I use that as a scriptural reference, not anything other than that. The Israelites were enslaved in Egypt. So, you're called out of slavery. You're called out of your connection to. You're called out of your misery. And you refuse to acknowledge that call. Guess what? You've told people how to treat you. You've gotten comfortable with it, and so have they. And one of the things that I learned the hard way is how people treat you is how they value you. And I need to say this. I had to recognize that I was on markdown. Think about it.